younger dryas, which is 12,000 BC, I think, something like that. And you mentioned a couple of other ones, one around 3,000-ish BC, is that right? And then there's...
I've been interested in the 536 AD event because that's the worst weather in the last 2,000 years. And I did some ice core work, and we found bits of we found nickel. Nickel is considered kind of diagnostic of cosmic dust, and we found nickel iron rich bits in the ice core, but we also found tin rich bits, which I think are also cosmic dust. And the tin rich bits have iodine and xenon with them, and basically if you put iodine in the solar wind and you bombard it, you get xenon. Xenon's a noble gas, so it's you have to make it pretty readily before it can get into something. I mean, it's not going to stick around, is what I'm saying.
Now, 500 BC, we would expect some discussion of this in the early classical antiquity, right? It seems like they were quite illiterate. There was a number of literate societies at that time, right?
Yeah, well, it's clear that if you go to Egyptian history, that there are these intermediate periods when the civilization just broke down. And so, yes, I mean, there were definitely other times when the climate went bad and people, basically civilizations and cities require that there's somebody in the hinterland who can produce enough extra food to feed the people in the cities. And if you don't have that, you're right, people leave the cities.
So it's almost as if these are the periods in which the records would be absent because there's problems to be dealt with and nobody's sitting around getting paid to be a scribe in those moments, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Like this 536 AD event, nobody even suspected that it existed until the tree ring people found evidence that when a tree is growing and it experiences frost during the growing season, you get what's called a frost ring. And they found these frost rings in trees in 536. And they did find, I think there are 3 or 4 descriptions of what happened that they did find in the written record. But considering that from the data that they have, that it was the worst weather in the last 2,000 years, it's amazing that nobody really suspected there was anything going on until they found something in the tree rings.
Tell us the story of how that discovery came about, maybe.
Well, I think the guy, Mike Bailey, who, he's a tree ring guy he lives in Ireland, and he figured out that there was something going on. And then other tree ring scientists, found frost rings. Like there's only 2 events in the last couple thousand years that produced frost rings in Mongolia, and 536 is one of them. And so then Mike started looking in the records, and he found that there were descriptions like that, and also I think Richard Struthers, where the sun would. There was an 18-month period in 536 and 537 where in Mesopotamia and Italy, the sun came out for only 4 hours a day. And also, of course, the crops were destroyed.
And is this written about in the
it's written
Mesopotamian?
about. I see. And so the idea is that there was so much, in this case, volcanic ash, probably, maybe a little bit of cosmic dust, but I think it's mostly volcanic. That the atmosphere, basically you have to have a huge amount of, aerosol dust way high in the stratosphere because in order for it to be up there for 18 months, you have to it has to be high, because things that are lower in the atmosphere in the next layer down, the troposphere, they get rained out. So for stuff to stay up there that long, and then the sulfate aerosol and probably some volcanic ash and maybe some clay as well, because I think there was probably an underwater impact associated with this event, because we also found marine microfossils in the ice core. and so there was a bunch of very fine particles up there obscuring the atmosphere.
So where was the ice core? Where was the ice core taken?
Greenland.
Greenland. Okay, so you have the I don't remember the name of the scientist that you said who was in Ireland.
Mike Bailey.
Mike Bailey. Okay, so Mike Bailey, does he see the frost rings in Ireland or he sees them somewhere else?
They see them somewhere else.
Where do they?
In Ireland, you don't get frost rings. It's too. What he saw were just basically low growth in, and he wanted the event to be around 540 instead of 536. But then, and there is something around then too. There were two volcanic events. But basically, the frost rings are mostly preserved in. You get some in the Soviet Union, you get some in Mongolia, but the big place where you see them is in the United States, in the bristlecone pines in California, and I think, let's see, Colorado. There's also some bristlecone pines.
Okay, so that's pretty crazy that you have something that is causing slow growth in Ireland, frost rings in Mongolia, California, the Rockies. Where is the and then deposition of marine microfossils in Greenland, which suggests that there's some kind of are you thinking that that's tsunami event in Greenland that's depositing it on the ice cores?